Cisco Certified Network Associate Day 31. Welcome back everyone. I'm Imran Rafai, your trainer for this entire series. Today we're going to talk about password resets and licensing, right? This is a very critical information for device management. So if you guys haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing so that you will be notified when we have new videos. So without wasting much time, let's get straight into today's class. And like always, before we go ahead, my social media contacts are here and my email address is on your screens. If you have anything, please feel free to contact me. So what is ahead? Today we're going to look at three things. We look at password recovery, right? How do we do password recovery in switches and routers? Then we would look at iOS upgrade, recovery, backup, whatever that is. And then of course we will look at iOS licensing, which is introduced in the latest iOS version 15 and above, right? So how do we do password recovery? Now you would ask, why do we need password recovery? Now let's assume we set up a device and we have set up all the passwords on it, right? Blind VDI passwords, maybe console passwords, even enable password for that. And let's assume we've forgotten the password, or maybe one of the staff who was in the company, they left and they did not give you a password, or maybe you bought a device on eBay, right? And you got a used device, you got the device and the passwords, you don't know the passwords and you can't access the device. So in such situations, how do we do password recovery? Right, so let's put on the hacker's hat. We will try to do a little bit of hacking. Well, not really hacking, but yeah, something like that, right? So we're breaking into the Cisco device and recovering the password. Now, this can be done like a hacking thing, right? If it's not your device, you could still do it, but then that's hacking, that's illegal. If it's your device and you're trying to get into your device because you've forgotten the password and you have permission on the device, then feel free, but don't be mischievous and try this on a device that you don't own, right? So how do we do it? There are three things basically. So when a Cisco device reboots, so basically if you want to do a password recovery, what you would do is you would you see this switch here, the power switch. So let me take the pen. So you see this power switch. So you will hit the switch off and then back on, right? That's what in the Cisco world they call it bouncing a switch, or bouncing a router. So you bounce the router, put it off and put it on, and when the device boots, you see those decompressing the image information. Then you see those hash and asterisks that keep going. So when you see that, that is when the image is booting. When that happens, you need to run a break sequence. Now the break sequence depends on your terminal software that you're using. If you're using hyperterminal, it's different. If you're doing secure CRT, if you're doing, right? So it depends on your terminal software. I will look at the description below. I will put a link from Cisco, which gives you a list of all the break sequence for different terminal softwares around, right? So run the break sequence. Now when you run the break sequence, the boot goes into something called as the ROM-on mode, right? The ROM monitor mode, the ROM-on mode, right? Now in the ROM-on mode, you get access. Now what is ROM-on? ROM-on is basically like your on your computer, right? You have the BIOS, right? It's a very basic operating system. So one of the features that you can access when you're in the ROM-on mode is the config register or the configuration register, right? Now normally for a system, when a router boots, the process is it first tries to get into, of course you get into the boot sequence, right? It does the post, and then it would load the operating system, right? Once it loads the operating system, next it looks for your startup configuration. If the startup configuration is not found on the device, it will go to the default configuration where you get that screen which says, do you want to run the system auto configuration, whatever that is, and we always type no, right? So it goes in that mode. Now what happens is the configuration register, right, the one that you see here. So once you do the boot sequence, you go into Roman mode, right, and configuration registry, that's what tells the boot sequence what it should do. So if at all the config register is in for a normal router, the config register stays at a value of 0x2102, which means load the startup config. If the config register is 0x2142, right, the difference is 4 and this is 0. If it is 42, it tells the boot sequence to skip the startup configuration. So it will load the operating system, it will skip the startup configuration, and it will go loading the default configuration, and the device will, it will have the startup configuration, but it will not load into the running configuration, and running configuration it will have the default settings, right? We'll see it very soon. So what we need to do is we need to go there and change the config reg to 0x2142, which will tell the device the next time it boots, please don't load the startup configuration. And startup configuration is where your password and all the other settings are there, right? So it will load without the startup configuration, and it'll give access to the privilege mode, right? So you can get access to the privilege mode, and then you can copy copy your startup configuration, which is there, and put it in the running configuration, change the password, and then you can save the running to the startup configuration. We'll see how it is done. Once you do that, reset the system, right, and then it will go into the mode. So I'm going to show you quickly, open Packet Tracer, and show you what we're talking about. Right, so this is a topology where I have a router. So now we are doing router password resets. So we okay, all this while in our series, I used to open the device like this and click on CLI, right, which is acceptable, but I want to do something different. I want to do how you would do in a real device, right? So basically, even though, like I said, when you click on this CLI, it's as if you've got console access to this, but let's not do that. Let's act as if we are really doing it. So what I've done is I've put a laptop. Now this is going to be a laptop. So you have a Cisco device that is not accessible, so I'm gonna take that, right? So this is a Cisco device, and I'm not going to use this. Henceforth I will consciously try not using the CLI tab. I will try to use as if it's a real device. So physical device, right, and I have a router. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this cable, this blue cable is the console cable. I'm going to plug the console cable to my laptop to RS232, that's my serial port, and I'm going to connect to the console port. So basically now this device is connected to the router, right? So here if I go to desktop, and I don't have to configure IP at all, right? For console I don't need IP. What I need is I need to go to terminal, and this is the setting. So this setting has to be the same. It has to be 9600 bits per second. Data bits will be 8. Parity is none. Stop bit is 1. Flow control none. And if you hit OK, it will give you access to the console, right? And if you click on CLI, it's exactly the same thing. So basically if I hit here, you see that it is the same thing. But this is because it's Packet Trace, it gives us access from here, but we will not be using this. We will always try using it using a device like this, a laptop. So it will try to simulate a real world environment, right? So now you have this device, router, which needs a password reset. You have taken your laptop, gone there, connected a console cable, plugged into the console port, and you opened terminal software, put these values, right, and then you are accessing the console, and then you realize it is locked with a password. How do we enter? There's no way we can enter. What you do is, now this is a router, so go to the router, let's bounce the router. So what do? We switch it off and we switch it on, right? And you see that the image is decompressing. You need to do Control C. So in Packet Tracer it is Control C, but if it's a hyperterminal it is Control break. Different devices have different things. Like I said, look at the description and you will have a list of all the break sequence for different terminal softwares. So once we get into this mode, you can see this, it is ROM monitor, ROM on, right? Let's do a question mark and we'll see what are the commands that's available here. So in this mode, I have boot confreg, this is what I was talking about, configuration register, dir, help, reset, set, tft, dnld, and unset. So we don't need to worry about anything now. We'll look at confreg. So I'm going to do conf reg, configuration registry, and I need to set the value 0x02142, right? 2142. If I say 2142, I'm telling this device the next time you reboot, please discard, right? Don't consider, don't delete the startup config, but just don't load the startup config. Just load the default value. I want the system to act as if it's a brand new router, right? So I'm going to hit enter. 2142. Remember, the value 2142 is skipping the startup config. 2102 means it's a normal router where it will load the startup configuration, right? So that's how the startup configuration takes effect, right? So once you do this, I'm going to do reset, which is going to reset the system. So now this router is resetting, right? So once the router resets, ideally, if whatever we have done is correct, it will go to the default setting. So you see, now it has gone as if it's a default router, right? There's no setting, there's no configuration on, and that's why it's taken us to the system configuration dialog, where we always say no. So let's say no, hit enter, we are in the router, and you see that earlier the router had a name which is right, so because we were in console, it was asking for a console password. You couldn't even see the host name, but then of course there is a host name. You'll see that soon. So I hit enter. I am in the privilege mode, right? So from user mode, I got to the privilege mode now. Now I can say, let's do this, show start. And this is the startup configuration. So you'll see the host name is NW King router, and then I have put a line console password. Password is console. I know the password, so I can like copy this, and then I can use this password. But if you want to change the password, very well, you can. What we need to do is first we need to load the startup config to our running config. So let's do this. Copy start to running. Right, so basically what it is going to do is it's going to copy the startup config, put it in a running config, and you'll see that router's host name already changed because now this is the running config, right? Show run, our running configuration is what used to be the startup configuration, and now we can see the password for console is console. Have we set up an enable password? No, we have not set up an enable password, so that should be fine. So and also another thing to remember is once you do that recovery, we are still in privilege mode. It did not take us back to the user exec mode, right? So we are safe. We can still make changes to the registry. Let's say the password was secret. Obviously you will not be able to read a if it, let's say, enabled secret and I had put a password, you will obviously not see. We have discussed this earlier. It's an encrypted password and you will not be able to see the password. So you can go back there and you can type the password again. So you'll say enable secret and enable whatever, right? Now if I say show run, you will see that enable secret is done and it's an encrypted password. You will not know what it is, but you know because you said it now, right? So this is how you do password recovery for a router. One more thing, this is critical. So now if you say, let's say show version, and show version at the end, it will also always show us the config register value. So you see that the config value is 2142, right? So if I do now, let's say now the running config, I have made changes. So I say copy running to startup, right? Now I've saved my running config to startup config. But in this state, if I restart my router, what will happen? Yes, the device will go back because the config register is still 2142. The device will come back with factory setting, right? It will come without any configuration, right? We don't want that. We have recovered the password. Now we know the password. Now we want the device to act like a normal router. We want it to load the startup config because we have the configuration. We want the router to load the startup config and just boot like a normal way, right? So what we need to do is we need to go into global configuration mode and then say configure register 0x2102, right? It changed our config register, and then copy running to start, or we could just say write. Write is the old command, WRITE, right? If I do write, it's the old command. Sorry, you know why this happens, domain name server. Let's not discuss, we have discussed this earlier, but let's just wait for this to time out. Of course it's timed out. WRITE, write, it does the same thing as copy running to startup config, right? Once we do this, let's say we'll do again show version, and we will see that now the config registry is 02142, but it says it will be 02102 at next reload. So let's do reload, confirm, and then the router will reload, and we will have all the files, all the configurations intact, and we know the new password now. So this is how we do password recovery for this is console, and enable is enable. This is how we do password recovery for a router, right? So we have done with this. Let's go back to our presentation. So that's how you do password recovery for a router. Now how do we do password recovery for a switch, right? Now in like I said, in a router there is a switch. There's a power switch where you can put it off and put it on, but in a switch, in a Cisco switch, there's no power switch, right? So what we need to do is we need to first you can like unplug the cable from the back of the switch, right? And then reload the switch, or if you have access to the privilege mode, then you can do reload, say reload to the switch, and when the switch is reloading, press this button. There is this button, can you see this button? Press that button for 3 seconds. When you press that button for 3 seconds, automatically it will go into the Roman mode, right? And in that mode, what you need to do is you need to first you initialize flash, and inside flash there is going to be one file, right? So once you press for 3 seconds, you get into that mode. In that mode you can go, there is a file called flashconfig.text. Now this is a configuration file in a switch. What we would do is we would rename that switch, or we would rename that config file, right? So we could rename it to config.old or whatever you want, and then do a system reset. So what happens in a switch is when switch is booting up, after it loads the operating system, the iOS, it looks for the config file. If the config file is not present, it will just load the default, right? That's the difference. In a router, you had to go and change the config registry, right? Config register to get it to go to the default mode, right? In a switch, you just change the name of that device or of that config file, and then the switch will load the default. So let's see how it is done in Packet Tracer. Right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use, this time I'm going to connect my laptop to the console cable, to the console port of the switch, right? Let's do the same thing that we did earlier. So we're going to keep the physical we're not going to use the CLI tab. We're going to do exactly like how it is done in real life. So I'm going to access the CLI, I'm going to access the console only through a laptop. Right, so let's try to access. So again, same configuration, 9600, 8, none, 1, and none. Hit enter. I'm in the console port of the switch. Now, in this case, I have not given a console password. The reason is, if I had a console password, I wouldn't be able to reload the switch, because this is Packet Tracer. There's no way I can remove the cable and replug the cable to reboot the switch. So I had to what we could do is I can do an enable password. So let's say configure enable password enable, right, and hit right. Now if I were to come here and I type enter this password, I don't know the password, let's assume, so I need a password reset, right? So can I do reload? No, I don't think so. We can do reload from this device. I mean from the user mode at least. So you can do a reload from the privilege mode. So what I'm going to do is, I mean in real life, of course, like I said, just plug the cable from the back, put it back in, and the device will restart. But in our case, we don't have the luxury, so I am going to remove the password and I am going to reload it from here. You understand why I'm doing that, right? And again, let's wait for this domain server lookup to timeout. All right, let's go. Let's enable, and the password is enable, and let's do reload. And when the device is reloading, press this mode button, and it says mode button press for 3 seconds for ROM on access. So I'm in a ROM on access. I don't want to go back to, I don't want to do CLI here. It's going to be, it's the same thing. And if you see CLI here is the same as from the laptop. So this is just simulating getting access to console. So but we are going to do as if real life. So I've connected a laptop to the device and I'm in the ROM on mode. So now I'm in the ROM on mode. So first we need to do is this command which says flash underscore init, right? This is initializing flash. In Packtrace, I think the flash initialization of the flash happens automatically, but in your switch you might have to do this to initialize your flash. Then we can say dir flash, right? I'm going to see what is available in the flash, and you see that flash has two files. One is, this is the operating system, the iOS, and then you have the config file. So what we need to do is we need to rename flash config.text to flash config.old, right? So basically now we can say dir flash, and you can see that this file has indeed been renamed to config.old. Now let's do a reload or reset, and we see that the switch is in fact restarting now. And once the switch restarts, it should go back to the default mode, right? So you see the switch has gone back to default mode. That's why the switch says switch, right? The host name was an NW King switch, so that means it has not loaded the configuration. So we go here, and in a real device there is a command which says rename, right? But in Packtrace I think that command is not there, so I cannot. But I can say show running. Of course, there's, you can see it's a default. There's nothing on the device now. In Packtrace, what I do is there's a command called more, and I can say flash config.old, right? This is I mean, this is a hack. What you need to do is just copy this part, right? This is the the real configuration file, so you just copy this part. I mean, you understand why I'm doing this, right? So I can do copy and go to the global config mode, and I can do paste, and ideally it should copy everything, and you can see that the host name has changed and the switch has come back to the normal switch. And then you can do a copy start or copy running to start, and then you will have a new config.t file, config.txt file that is created by the switch, right? So easy way to do is rename the old file to the correct name, config.text, or if in Packtrace you're doing, and you can just copy your config.old's content and then put it in your running config and then save it, right? Whatever way you want, you can do. So that's how you do switch password recovery, right? So you see that there is a difference between password recovery for a router and for a switch. Next, we're going to look at iOS backup and recovery, right? We would look at how to copy the iOS image, right, to the TFT, how to get the file back from TFT to your device, and then we would see how do we recover. Like, there are chances when your iOS file is deleted by mistake, right, for some reason. Maybe one of your colleague has done it, or whatever reason your iOS does not boot. How do we recover? How do we get, from your Roman mode? You say, I mean, like we saw, there was a Roman mode in your iOS device. From that mode, how do we get the file from a TFTP server, right? There are two ways to do it. One is the X modem, right? Packet Tracer does not support X modem, so I'm just going to briefly tell you what X modem is, and then we will do what we can do from Packet Tracer, which is the TFT method. Alright, so now we have a device. This is the device, and what I've done is I've given this IP address 10.1.1.1, and then I've given this server IP address 10.1.1.10, right? So you can see that 10.1.1. Have I not given okay, apparently I have not given an IP address to this, but there is definitely an IP address in this 10.1.1.10. so I'm going to quickly give an IP address to this. So obviously we can't do this because we're not going to touch CLI. I'm going to connect console cable, plug it to the console port. Let's do the normal way. Go to terminal. Okay, and I'm in the console of that device, right? I can see there is a password. Password is console, enter, configure terminal, interface G0/0, IP, sorry, interface F0/0, IP address 10.1.1.1, 255.255.255.0, no shut. So right now I have this configured the IP address, right? So how do we do, right? So this is, let's look at the flash now. Show flash. So this one is the Cisco iOS, or the operating system of this router, right? This is the most important thing. Now, how do we copy this file to the TFTP server? There is a TFTP server on this device. So in Packet Tracer, how do you configure TFTP? You can go to server and go to services, and then there is a TFTP service. Put it on, and at the moment these are all the operating systems that's available on the server, right? This one is the one that is there on this device, 1841 routers, adds services. So what we can do is we can remove this file because I want it to come from here. So let's go back here. Let's go back here, and I'm going to say copy flash to TFTP, right? It's going to ask the source file name. So this is the file name. So I'm going to say source. I'm going to put it here, paste. And remember, always when you use the copy command, first is the source and then is the destination. Remember this always, especially when you're in recovering passwords for the router, where you have to configure, copy from startup to running. If by mistake, when you after you get back into the device, you do copy running to startup, you would literally delete all the backups, right? All the configuration in the startup file, because the startup file is where it was, and your running config at that point was blank, right? You would have copied everything from your running to your startup, and you would lose all your files. So be careful. Startup to running and running to startup, you need to know which is source and which is destination. So in this case, we put the file name. So now it says destination, address name of the remote host. Remote host is the TFTP server, which is 10.1.1.10. Destination file name, I can leave it as the same, and it is writing that to that server. Now we can go back here, TFTP, and you can see that this file is indeed here. Right, that's how you copy the file from the flash to TFTP. How do we do the other way around? You can say copy TFTP to flash, right? It's asking host, remote host is 10.1.1.10. file name, right? Let's do this. Let us get IP base. Can I copy? No, I can't. Okay, I'm gonna type the file name C1841 IP base. Oh, it's IP base is one word. IP base mz.12314 t7.bin, right? So let's confirm that. Oh, it starts with a C. Oh god. Yeah, C184 hyphen IP base hyphen mz dot 123 hyphen 14 dot t7 dot bin, right? That's the source file name. Destination file name will be the same thing, and you hit enter. You can go show flash, and you will see that now we have two files. One is the original, right, and then we have this file name. Right, these are the two operating systems that we have, and I don't know if we have discussed this iOS file names for old ones. So this is the platform, the 1841 router. This is advanced IP services, ADV IP services, right? K9 MZ. Those are the different version numbers and the release times. This T is for, I think it's like not a I think M release is for 16 months support, and T is intermediate release, right? Don't worry about that. This is what is important. 12.4, so it's a 124. This is iOS version 12.4. This is iOS version 12.3, right? So now we have two, and this is IP base. IP base is the basic functionalities. Advanced IP services, you will have much more functionalities, I think, like MPLS and things like that. So this is how you get from TFTP to your flash, right? So now another scenario is when by mistake you delete your flash. So let's delete flash, right? So once you delete flash, it's going to ask what to delete. Let's delete both the iOS. So copy. Okay, before we do this, let's say now, okay, by default now this is the iOS that it is booting from. Now for some reason you say, okay, from next boot I want this iOS to be the boot operating system. So what you do is you go to config mode and you say boot system, right? This is a command, boot system, and you say flash, and you give the file name, right? So from next boot, this is going to be the default operating system, right? Even though it has two operating systems, this is going to be the operating system it is going to boot from, right? That's the command to change the boot sequence. So now let's do this. Let's delete flash, and let's delete that file. It says deleted. Next, let's delete this operating system. So basically we have deleted both the operating system from this device. Delete flash, and I'm going to say operating system. Perfect. Now show flash. Oh my god, we don't have an operating system. What will happen if we reload? What will happen? Right, it will go into Roman mode. Why? Because that's the process. It is going to look for the operating system. If the operating system is not present, it goes into the Roman mode. Now Roman mode is, like I said, the basic operating system which has some functionalities. Now there are two ways. In packet tracer there is no xmodem, but if you are, let's say, doing on a real device, there is a command called xmodem. You would say xmodem, right, and then you give all the details. Once you do that, you can in let's say if you're using Teraterm, or if you're using Secure CRT, you can click on file, and there is an option which says transfer, and then you can choose xmodem. Once you do xmodem, you can choose the file. So let's assume this iOS file is in your laptop, like you will have it in your laptop, and then you can choose that file. You can say transfer xmodem and choose that operating system file, and you say send. And xmodem is, it's it's really slow, right? There are times when it has taken one hour, maybe 2 hours, so it's very slow. That's X modem. Depending on the file size, it can be very tedious process. TFT on the other hand is slightly more faster. I wouldn't say it's very fast, but it's slightly more faster than X modem, right? So in Packet Tracer, because we don't have that option of file and to choose transfer, I think that function, they don't have the command. So if you look at this, there's no command for X modem. Instead, we have something called the TFTP DNLD, which is TFTP download. So let's say TFTP DNLD. It tells us that we need to set up these variables, right? So let's set up those variables first. Now, why do we need that variables? Because now in this Roman mode, this router does not have any functionality. Basically, it is completely no use. So first we need to set up the device. We need to give it an IP address. So let's give an IP address. IP address 10.1.1.1. IP subnet mask 255.255.0. Default gateway 10.1.1.10. What else? TFTP server is again same thing, 10.1.1.10. and TFTP file, what is the file name? I think I should have that in, right? This is the TFTP file name. So basically what I've done is I have given the IP address, I've given the mask, gateway, I've done the default. So if you can, I don't know if you remember, so this is how the topology is. So I'm giving 10.1.1.1 to this device, right? Because its configuration is completely erased. In the Roman mode, there is no IP address, so we are creating those IP addresses now. And we are telling your default gateway and FTP server is 10.1.1.10, and I've given the file name. So once that's done, all I have to do is run this command tftpdnld, hit enter. It will confirm, it'll ask us to confirm that IP address is this, subnet mask is this is the default gateway TFTP server, and this is the file you're looking for. If I say yes, what it would do is it would, if you can see now it's become green, it is actually copying the file from the TFTP server. Once it's done, let's do the boot command, and instead of doing, no, you could do the reset. On a real device you say reset, it'll reset, but you can do boot. So boot is working, so you hit boot, it is booting back, and you can see that now your device is working because the operating system is back in the device. So this is how you recover a device which has lost its operating system, right? Let's look what else is there. Right, so that's how you do recovery of iOS. How do we do backup, and how do we recover, and how do we recover if there's no operating system at all? Next, we're going to talk a little bit about iOS licensing. Now, prior to iOS version 15, that was I think 12.4. From 12.4 they directly jumped to iOS 15. Don't ask me why, but that's what they did. So earlier, the way you bought devices, you would call Cisco and say, okay, I want a device, right? And Cisco would say, yes, okay, what platform do you want? Okay, this is the platform. And they would say, okay, this platform costs $1,000. Because obviously it depends on the license. So let's say hardware, whatever that hardware was, right? They give you hardware and they'd say, okay, what operating system? We say, I want IP base. Okay, fine, IP base is $1,000. If maybe your friend, he says, okay, I want enterprise IP services, right? It's the same hardware, but this with IP base, it costed you $1,000, but your friend, he paid $10,000. Okay, don't quote me on the numbers, I'm just giving you random numbers. Now he took the IP advanced services and you bought it with the IP base. Hardware is the same, the only thing that was different was the operating system. Now what prevents you from asking your friend to give a backup of the operating system and you put it onto your device? you literally saved $9,000. Or even if you did not have a friend, today with the advancement of internet, right, one of the biggest problems with the internet is piracy, right? So all the operating system is available on the internet. I mean, people do that. Of course, it's illegal. I would never recommend anybody to do that, but people are doing that. And that is why Cisco said, you know what, we need a mechanism to prevent that. And that's why when they went to iOS version 15, they went with licensing. Now, if you remember from old version, like I showed you a while ago, iOS versions 12.4 had different operating systems. So you had the advanced security. So these are the different versions, right? And you could tell that by looking at the operating system name. So it would say IP base, or it would say advanced IP services, like the one we saw earlier, ADV IP services, or ENT base, ENT services, advanced security, right? So every operating system had a name, and you could distinguish by the name what operating system it was, right? Like you have in your Windows, you have Windows Home, Windows Basic, Windows Enterprise, right? So similarly, more features, more functionalities as you go higher down the scale. In iOS 15, you have one operating system, right? It's called the Universal Operating System. Now, Universal Operating System has the IP base. IP base is it's a lifetime license. It is enabled for everyone, right? So IP base is enabled for everyone. All the other three functions, the data, unified communication, or security, it would run on licenses. So you had to go to Cisco, you need to go buy, you can go online and buy the license from Cisco. You would say, okay, I want data services. So you go to Cisco, you pay amount, whatever that is, $1,000, $2,000, whatever that amount, you pay Cisco, and Cisco would send a license file to your email. Take that file, go into your device, you can put it on the device's flash, right? You can just do a TFTP and transfer that to your device flash, and you can say license install, and you can install your new license, and your whatever that service that you bought the license for would automatically get enabled, right? So and then of course there is another way where you could do evaluation, like for instance security. I think in packet tracer security is evaluation license, where you could enable the evaluation license and run for 60 days, where you get security functionalities, right, like crypto and all the other things, VPNs, and all that comes under security. So basically, depending on what you need to buy the license. A base license is going to be common. So I'm going to quickly show you how to look at the licensing and how to look at all the other functionalities of Cisco iOS license. I'm going to take an exception. So let's go CLI this time and do show version. So if you do show version, you could see, right, you would see that this is running version 15.1, and if you can see, it's C1900 Universal K9M, right? That means it's a universal license that has all the things. But what license is it running? You can see that down. It will tell that the license information for module C1900. IP base is a permanent license. You can see permanent. Security is disabled. Data is disabled, right? They don't have any license at the moment. Show license all, right? You can do show license, and then there are different ways. You can do show license all. It will tell whatever license that's available. So at the moment, the primary license is IP base. It's a permanent license. It's active. It's in use, not counted. Evaluation license storage. There is security K9 license, that's evaluation, and then you have data K9. I think both of them come as evaluation, but I think packet tracer at the moment it supports only security evaluation. That's why I think license type evaluation, and here license type nothing is shown. So that is the license, how to look at the license. You can also look at license details, and you can basically see how many what are the licenses that's active, and things. What other things you can look at? License features, right? So you can see that IP base, enforcement no, evaluation no, subscription no, enabled yes. Security enforcement, yes, that means you need license for this. Evaluation is available for security. Subscription, no. It says, is it enabled? No. Right? So this is a little about Cisco IOS version 15 licensing, right? So you go to Cisco's website, you buy the license, put the license here. You can come to the global config mode. You can say license, and you can say install, which is not there here, but you can say install, and then you can enable your license, and then automatically whatever license that you're installing will get enabled. That's how you do licensing in version 15 and above. I think we have covered everything for ICND1. This will be the last video for ICND1. The next video I'm gonna quickly, I've had a lot of people asking about how to sign up for the exam. So next video I'm gonna quickly show you how, if people who are interested to write the ICND1 exam, I will show you how to go register for the ICND1 exam and attempt the test. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.